All right, begin.
All right, this is the March meeting of the ESBC. It's being conducted according to the rules of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to comply with COVID-19 shelter in place and comply with open meeting laws. My name is Wayne Klockow. I'm the chairman. I'm going to ask Kim Borst to take attendance first of the voting members, and then of the non-voting members, and then of our consultants, and then if there are any members of the public that are attending, I'm going to ask everybody to identify themselves. When you are not speaking, I'm going to ask you to turn your microphone off so that you're not hearing typical background signs of people shuffling around. Dogs barking or children in the background so that we can proceed in a business-like fashion. So, Kim, would you get started, please?
Sure. So I see Wayne, Diane, Craig, and Rich.
Correct?
So Wayne Klockow, Diane Germain, Craig Schultz, Rich Nichols.
Yes, I'm here. Yep.
Yeah, that's correct.
Me too. Kim, did you see the note from Denise saying she might be joining us late?
Okay, yeah, I did see that from Terry as well with school committee. So.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. So that's voting members. How about the rest of the committee members?
Are you taking roll call?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Jim McCaffrey's here.
Okay. Is that it for additional ESBC members?
John Engler's here.
Okay, John. It's hard for me to see with everybody's initials. Okay, so I see obviously.
Kim, you're breaking up.
I see Charlie. Hey.
Yep, I'm here.
Charlie. Hey, Chris Everly. Who else is on the line that I'm missing?
Julie Allen from Agassini's here.
Okay. Okay, is there anybody?
Kim, we're having trouble hearing you. Are you able to hear us fine?
I can hear you fine, yes.
Are you using a phone or your computer?
The computer.
All right. Maybe you just need to stay a little closer to the microphone. All right. So I have a quorum of voting members here. So let's proceed. I have Jim McCaffrey, John Engler as non-voting members. Any other non-voting members of Millis?
Charlie Hay?
No, not. Those are consultants. So
Okay.
of the consultants, we have Charlie, Julie Allen, Chris Eberly, anyone else as a consultant? Okay, then let's proceed. We first order of business is to go through the construction progress and schedule, and I think I'd like to have that discussion with the agenda item immediately below that, because it's, I think, integral is the impact from the COVID-19. So, Julie, is that you?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, then why don't you lead us through where you're at with the schedule, and where do you see yourself proceeding given the current COVID-19 requirements.
Okay. So right now, nothing has really messed us up too much. We're still continuing to work on the site. We're just really spreading loom, planting. We're getting the irrigation system ready for the lower field. We're finishing all really the parking work. We are still waiting for the asphalt plants to open without any caveats. Originally, that date was supposed to be April 6th, or the week of April 6th, and we're hopeful it actually might be a little bit sooner, and we are going to try to take advantage of having basically the parking lot to ourselves if we can. We'll have to see how that goes with the asphalt plant. The one problem is our fence company, Steel Co Fence, was supposed to do the fence for the tennis courts, and they have shut down all their operations at this point with no known reopen date at this time. So that could cause a delay in the tennis courts. I'm still trying to reach out to him and see if I can get a hold of him, but as of Thursday of last week, they shut down, and he really hasn't responded to me at all since then. So that could push our tennis courts out, but we're hopeful to keep moving on the parking lot area and keep going there. We're probably going to be Oh, go ahead.
Is that the only contractor that has advised you that they're ceasing operations?
On this project, yes. We have contractors on other projects that have ceased operations as well. But for this project, that's the only one.
And as far as you know, the asphalt plants are not affected by the governor's restrictions on critical operations?
No, not as of yet. I had a conversation with Dorenzo today, and they are still open as of today.
All right. What about the work that is contemplated inside the building, Julie? I'm thinking primarily of the booster pump on the domestic water supply.
Right. So our plan for that was that we were going to get in there over April vacation, when school was actually in session. So he is supposed to get all the materials for that in about 2 weeks, which would put us right in line for the April vacation week. It's going to be a discussion with the school, I think, as to whether they still want to let us in and do that work. I think mainly we'll be confined to the boiler room, and we can make that restriction if, if the custodians are still working and they're willing to help us with some maybe testing of the fixtures and the sinks.
Well, Julie, at our last construction meeting, I thought John Engler indicated they'd be amenable to doing that. John, is that still the case? John Engler?
John, I think you're on mute, John.
Yeah, I just got off mute. Sorry. Yes, we'll be willing to assist whichever way we can.
So, so their schedule to do that work during April vacation is still on schedule?
Yeah.
John?
Yep.
John?
If that's for John, yes. Well, we're taking it day by day, even if there is an April vacation. We have not canceled April vacation as of yet.
All right, thank you. All right, what else is critical, Julie, in terms of schedule?
I mean, nothing else really critical. We do have a few punch list items, minor. I know we have that light fixture at the bottom of stair 1. It did come in. We do have it. Actually, Griffin Electric called me today wondering when they can install it, and I told them just not right now. I think that's not something critical that needs to happen, and just to let more people into the building. I'm trying to keep them away if possible. And that's really it for us.
All right. Overall, your construction schedule is intended to go through May 20th. Do you see yourself extending beyond that time?
The tennis courts is a possibility. Yes, it's going to be tricky with the tennis courts. We're either going to have to be really creative with the fence posts, or we're going to think of some kind of alternative solution, or just push the date out.
All right. The last time we spoke at our weekly construction meeting, I asked you whether or not your management had considered whether or not there was a case for extra time.
Correct. Yeah. So I discussed that with Steven Agostini, and his stance is, if it's the school that's requesting us not take the tennis court, then that's one thing, and he probably would be looking for additional funds, but obviously that's not the case anymore, and it's just a matter of the environment right now, and he's not going to pursue anything related to that.
All right. Good. Thank you. So other than the tennis court fencing, you still expect to be done by May 20th?
Correct. Yeah.
And so that now includes, Julie, that critical T intersection in front of the VMB building, that stop sign, and then where it turns in two directions, that has to be paved. So you're still planning on doing that when?
Yeah, we're actually going to probably mill that roadway relatively soon, but we can mill that probably in a half a day's time, maybe even less, and then we can open it back up to traffic and have people drive over it. So we're hoping to set that up for next week sometime, and then again, all we need to do is put the top coat on it, so that would be when the asphalt plant's open, and that's probably, last time we spoke to the asphalt company, it was second week of April.
All right. So Jim McCaffrey, the VMB is closed to the public at this point. How long do we expect that to be the case?
Well, at this point, it's at least till April 7th, but we would expect that it probably has to go forward. But if anybody has to do business, draw permits of any kind whatsoever, they can make an appointment. So we shouldn't, I'm not sure what would be holding us up in terms of what you folks might need.
No, my question, Jim, was more of this may be an opportunity for us to pave that intersection when traffic will be low, because the normal flow of people in and out of that building is going to be greatly reduced, I would expect.
That is correct. So I can't give you a date beyond that at this point, but I think it probably will go beyond it.
All right. So Julie, you need to contact Jim McKay and probably Chris Sophia, the police chief, to get your traffic plan in place. I think there's going to need to be some coordination there, because I think we're going to be changing traffic for the period of time where you need to.
Hey, Wayne, I'm sorry to interrupt. We got people waiting in the lobby. Should I just let them in?
Who's waiting in the lobby?
508-376-4197.
Sure.
Okay, I'll just admit people. I just want to let you know. And Denise joined us.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah.
So did Terry.
Oh, Terry
Welcome,
joined us
Denise
too.
and Terry. Is your meeting over?
It is.
Yes.
And who's the one I
Excellent.
just let in? Oh, I have no idea who I just let in.
It was probably me. I lost it on my computer and tried to call in on the phone, and then it came back from my computer.
Got it. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll just keep letting people in. I just wanted to make sure that we were watching that.
Great. Thanks, Craig.
Yeah.
All right. So for the benefit of the school folks that just joined us, Julie was going through the schedule, two things are of importance. The booster pump installation is still being scheduled inside the building for the week of April vacation. John Engler seems to think that as far as the school access is concerned, that still is a go. Outside, the Steelco Fence Company putting up the fence for the tennis courts has shut down, and we're waiting to see what the impact of that will be on the overall ability to do that work. Any other questions about schedule? All right, let's then go to the next subject, which is radon, long-term radon results. Who wants to lead that discussion? Well,
I can take the lead on that, Wayne. The GZA, the consultant that was hired by the town to evaluate the radon, returned the results from their long-term testing and found that a high percentage, I want to say was it half or 2/3 of the tests were in the 5 to 8 range, with 4 being considered the action level. They returned some plans to the town that I don't have readily available, where they discussed with us on a conference call on Thursday the options that we had going forward. The next step regarding radon is going to be for them to do a little research and planning, and then proceed with the pilot test that they had proposed, which essentially is a number of cores in the slab and then hooking up a vacuum apparatus and testing how effective a venting of the slab will be based on this vacuum testing approach. They assumed that it would be 1 to 2 weeks of desk work before they were ready to begin discussing the process for moving forward with testing the slab, and then there would be a further construction design component for designing the actual venting system based on the pilot test results that they get. They basically need to establish how effective the subgrade under the slab is at moving the air and the radon with it, and then that will inform their overall design for how the pilot program, or by how frequently they will need to vent the underside of the slab and where those vents will need to occur. So currently they're in that pre-testing design phase, and they'll be advising us when they're ready to move forward with the pilot testing itself.
Chris, could I ask you a question? How close now? You had it as it's a 5, and action level is it's a 4. It's above a 4, so we're really close on this.
It's 5 to 8. I don't know if I have the exact
meaning 5 to 8, depending on the
me.
site, the location, the classroom, or the.
They found that D-Wing in particular was consistently high. There were a few other areas. I'm trying to see if I have the plan that I can put on the screen for you.
Rich, did you not get a copy of the GZA report with the plan?
I don't remember. The client was moving in this week, so I was a bit busy. So I may not have seen it.
All right. I thought I had distributed that to the entire committee. If not,
I don't remember seeing it, but it's been a little bit nuts.
We'll do that again afterwards if needed.
So this is C-Wing on the first floor. And what they do is they take the overall, my understanding of the test is that they take the overall and they average it essentially at each testing location, and then they compare that to the range exhibited in establishing the results. So you can see that on the first floor in the kindergarten area, we were in the 4.7, 4.1 on this side, but then there are a number of 5s, 5.2s, 5.8s, 5.
Yeah.
And then smaller results in some of these smaller rooms. Looking at D-Wing, this was really one of the hot spots.
Hey guys, I'm
They
still on
found-
the call. Emma?
They found in the 5 to 6 range through most of the areas, but there were a few that were higher. This classroom ended up at 8. A few at the end ended up at 7.4. So we could walk through all of these. They provided a schedule of sort of where all the numbers fell by the test, and then they correlated them with plans so that you had a sense of where the results fell. So we'll distribute this so that everybody has a chance to take a look at it. But it doesn't change the next steps. The next recommendation, based on where the numbers fell, would be to investigate what it would take to mitigate the areas, and the next step in that is the pilot test system to establish the efficiency of the evacuation so that they can design a system that they can apply through the school.
Rich, when we discussed this with GZA at our construction meeting last Thursday, I was under the misconception that we were still looking for specific sources of where, or concentrations where radon might be getting into the building, and looking to address those really kind of on a point basis. And I asked, and I was perplexed by the difference in readings and how much more homogeneous these readings were across the entire building as opposed to the variety of readings that we got from the 3-day test. GZA apparently has concluded that that's not the way to proceed, and that based on how the building operates and the level of radon in the building, that subfloor ventilation will be required throughout the building. So the next step is to determine the porosity of the dense grade, which is below the slab, or whether or not they need to go further into the compacted soil beneath that, and determine the effectiveness of the ability to draw negative pressure in those areas. And then their intention is to design a system that will be installed in each of the wings in order to reduce the overall level. So it's a different scope than I had envisioned, but that's apparently their recommendation at this point.
No, that's exactly what I would figure they would do, is to depressurize underneath. That's how you're supposed to do it. So.
Yeah.
So Chris, the way it was left at the meeting was GZA was going to contact both you and I think Charlie Hay and Julie Allen to determine the best method for setting up this original test, where that might be and how it might be located and installed, and then we'll do the next step after that, is then design where these should be located.
And Wayne and Charlie. So on this, you can run the pipes through the building. They're going to basically put in pipes to blow the radon up through the roof. They also could be outside, which isn't that attractive, but they would be less costly to put them outside. So I think we should, think of both options.
I'm not sure of what if I'm following you about being outside, Rich.
There's when they put in basically going to put a fan in to depressurize the slab.
Right.
Those can be run through the building if you have chases that you can get them up.
Right.
But they also could be run outside the building. I would say that we should look at them both ways. Having them outside is ugly, but it would be definitely more cost effective. So I think we should have the option of both ways.
Sure, will do.
I think it's premature to really design the system in terms of the amount of verticals that you'll need and where we can put them, given that the results of the pilot test are really going to inform how frequently we need to vent. They may dictate that we need to proceed in one way or another just from simple practicality standpoints. Most of the spaces in D-Wing are large open rooms. So we may find that if we need a lot of vents in order to do this, it may be really challenging to introduce a lot of vents, whereas we might find that the subsoil is very porous and moves gas very easily. And in that case, we might find that we need very few vents and it's relatively easy to locate them. So I think that the point that we're at is this is a process. The next step in the process is to identify the effectiveness of pulling the gas from below the slab and let that lead to the number of sub-slab vents that need to be introduced, and then talk about what the most cost-effective and best way for the overall project is to install that number of vents.
Okay, so any questions? I don't see that we have any option on how to proceed. The levels are just at the actionable threshold, and so I don't see any reason why we wouldn't proceed. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Wayne, this is Jim. Is there any indication of how long it will take for this next phase to determine what the big step's going to be? A week?
No, I think it's a couple of weeks in order to get this test installed, and then there's going to be probably a couple of weeks, Jim, of then designing where they would be within the building, and as Rich said, how to vent it, through chases within the building, up through the roof or outside or whatever. So that'll take some time as well. And I would say, well, go ahead.
GZA thought that April vacation as a target for the pilot test was a reasonable target. In discussion of installing the permanent system, that could be quite messy. And in that case, it may be the kind of thing that needs to wait until summer. That being said, with the COVID-19 situation, we're seeing a range of disruptions, large and small, across projects. Some projects like this one are minimally disrupted. Other projects that are larger and in a different phase are getting letters from all sorts of subs saying that they have material problems or they have staffing problems, or in the case of Steel Co, they just decided to shut down. So I think that forecasting, the idea that we'd be doing this in May or June, I don't think is a realistic target given where the COVID-19 situation is and the amount of disruption that installing these vents would cause to the school. We're talking about coring concrete, possibly opening walls, possibly side coring to get, and doing some digging to get under the building. So in terms of next steps, April vacation is a target. Obviously, if school closing is extended, it gives us a wider window to hit that target. If schools don't open again this year, then obviously all that would change. So I think the only thing we know for certain right now is that next step is targeted to happen in April.
Well, then that leads us to the next question: is how is this going to be communicated to folks to make sure they understand what's going on and hopefully to minimize hysteria?
We have not talked about this, Jim, with the school administration yet. We need to develop a communication to that effect. I believe we did distribute the original GZA proposal, and so we're following that. And so this would be the extension of what was already laid out that we thought we might not need, but now obviously we do.
Well, right. I mean, there's a finding here, and I agree with you, Wayne. It's going to come. The leadership for the communication is going to come from the schools. So I'm asking them to, at some point, let us know what they're going to do so that we make sure that we don't get out ahead of ourselves across the park.
And the thing on this is that the levels are marginal. So it's not like, in some areas they are high. My guess is it's probably towards the boiler room or where it's more in the hill. But in general, the levels are not, we're doing it as an abundance of caution.
Right.
Yeah, and so from a school perspective, schools will be sending out the communication. We'll make sure to update everybody on this committee prior to any communications going out. I wouldn't expect Nancy, I think Nancy's on, but unless we hear otherwise, I wouldn't expect we would do a communication right now. We'd want to wait till the next set of tests come through until we have a definitive kind of start on when mitigation systems are going in. There are not students in the building, so the immediacy of this is a little less for getting the message out to folks as to what the longer term plan is.
And there's a lot of angst out there right now also.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess that's my point. Okay, well, I agree with that. I think that if the position of the committee is that, as you indicated, Rich, we're going to be moving forward with an abundance of caution here. There's no public health issue at stake. And once we've decided we've determined what we have to do, then we will proceed to do it. Something to that effect. I'm not trying to be overly dramatic here, but.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple points. It's a lifetime exposure level, and 8, as Rich said, isn't extreme on the lifetime meter. And the building's vacant now, so we have time to further investigate. If kids were in the building right now, if we didn't have these other tests scheduled, if it was a higher number, it moves up. But I think we have time right now and time to get it right. So a well-crafted message, but not a panic. Yeah.
All right. So Denise, will you let us know what the school folks are intending to do then?
Yeah, and I can say fairly confidently it's not going to be anything that's going to come out in the next week, because there are, while we have these results, again, without students in the building, I think that there are a lot of other things that are more top of mind because the kids aren't in the building right now. So I'm sensitive to the fact that while we do have a plan, I'd like us to get a little bit further down the path. So before we send any notifications out to families and the town as a whole. So we'll definitely keep you posted with what the plans are for communication, the timeline, and content.
Understood. And I'm fine with that. But in relation to getting to the next step, Chris and Charlie and Julie and I need to get with GZA to make the most of this period of time when children are not in the building. and get this test arrangement installed so that we can evaluate it, and so we can make the best use of an opportunity that would not have otherwise existed.
Right.
So are we asking for a communication letting folks know that we're doing another round of testing?
No, we're not
Okay.
we're not doing any more testing, Denise. What we're doing is installing the test venting system. We need to decide where best to do that. We need to decide its effectiveness before we design something for the entire building. So that part we need to do as quickly as possible. And Chris, I will call you in the morning, and let's get something with GZA so we can get a specific schedule from them as to when and how we're going to do this.
Yeah,
Okay, that would be great. If we can have that, and then we'll craft something as a result of that.
Yeah, I think once you get a schedule from Wayne, I think getting in front of it would be better, especially with no kids in the building now. This is going to be posted, this thing, and we've finally got decent audio probably on the recording. So there might be a lot of people who are aware of this. So I would try to get in front of it, especially with no kids in the building, and the fact that Wayne and we're putting together a plan to further not test, but to come up with a solution. I think that's the message that needs to go out. And as Rich said, even at this level, for a couple of weeks or while we're doing the testing, it's not a critical health issue for a short term.
Yeah, I agree. You guys are right. I agree. So once we get the schedule for the next for the test systems, then we'll draft communication and get messaging out to let folks know that that's going to be in place and when.
I think there's a distinction here that needs to be made just in terms of public communication. What we have done so far is to test for the presence of radon. The next step is to test the efficacy as a means of venting and mitigating the radon, not testing further for the presence of radon.
Right.
The testing we've done has established that radon is present and that a mitigation system should be designed. So the next step is a field exercise required in order to design the mitigation system.
Yeah, I'd even simplify that the next step is to design the mitigation system. I mean, it goes through several steps, the field exercise, the design, the testing, all that. But I'd keep it as simple as I could in the communication that we're going to do a solution. No more testing.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah,
we will.
and
We'll make it clear. We'll focus on it's the first step in the design of the mitigation system itself. So we're moving forward with installing a mitigation system. What we're going through is the first step of that system's design. That will include X, Y, and Z over the course of ABC. So we'll keep it short and simple, but we'll let folks know that it's the mitigation system is going in. This is the first step of it.
And I think that's the right message.
One more thing on this also is that we could not test for this until the building was completed. That's something we should make sure that, we have no chance of pre-testing for the radon until the building is completed. So we just have to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. And, the only time we could do it is when it's done.
Right. And the proper testing is during the winter when the building is most closed up. So this is the most conservative time to do that. Denise, we're happy to assist you with that. If you'd like to start a draft or have us review it, or us do it the other way, we're here to help in whatever way you think works best.
Appreciate that. I think maybe one prior one we drafted, and then we had review from you. So maybe we'll go that route to start, and then we'll see where we land.
Great. We'll look for your draft. Thank you.
We had somebody else join that I let in. It's the 4197 number. I don't know who that is.
It's Kim Borst.
Oh, you keep coming in and out.
Yeah, my
It's like
computer
the
keeps
third
kicking
number.
me out, so I'm going
You're
old
playing musical
fashioned.
phones, Kimmy.
Well, then never mind. I thought we were hugely popular.
It's just me.
Wayne, I just like to get a sense, and maybe you even vote or whatever, that it's the recommendation of the ESBC that any communication be coordinated through the school department, which is, or whoever it's going to be. I'd just like to not have people running off in different directions. And if it is the recommendation of this group, there will be official communication. It'll come through the school department, and others should refer questions to whomever rather than making up things as we go along.
I think that's a good point, Jim. I'll make a motion that the SBC recommends that all communication regarding radon testing is distributed by the school committee, and questions are answered through them with any input or advice they need from the elementary school building committee on the communication.
School committee or school department, wherever, give
School
them the
department.
broadest discretion.
Yeah, if you say, I was just gonna amend that to say superintendent, because all the communications will come from the superintendent.
Okay, amended.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Second.
So procedurally, for any votes that we do in this format, we're going to do them as a roll call so that I'm absolutely certain as to who's voting for what. So it's been moved and seconded.
Who was the second? I couldn't hear.
Rich Nichols seconded it. Craig, how do you vote?
I vote yes. Aye.
Rich Nichols, how do you vote?
Aye.
Denise Gibbons, how do you vote?
Aye.
Diane Germain, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Wayne Clarko votes aye. So the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. Anything else that we need to discuss on radon?
I just want to circle back on one quick thing. So either tomorrow or in the next couple of days, will there be, Wayne, you had mentioned that you and Chris would connect to talk about kind of timing and next steps. I just wanted, we'll draft our communication as a follow-up to receiving that, because we'll probably want to reference some things that will be in that. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Shall we move on? And the next subject is pickleball and tennis courts. Since we last met, a couple of developments. The select board voted to overlay 3 existing tennis courts with pickleball lines and to take the 4th tennis court and convert it to 4 permanent pickleball courts. Since that time, we have gotten a price to do that. There has been quite a bit of work done by Diane Germain in order to make those 4 pickleball courts fit within the existing space. Diane, do you want to talk about that?
It's kind of old news now, but we changed the boundary on one of the tennis courts, and we managed to get enough boundary on the fence side of the pickleball courts. I talked with Denise. She took it to Nancy and someone else, I guess maybe the tennis coach, and they reviewed it and said, yes, it looked acceptable to them. The only other thing we did was, at John Engler's request, we flipped the 4 pickleball courts from the southeast corner to the northeast corner.
And that was done in order to facilitate watching of the high school tennis matches so that they could be watched by parents and others from one more convenient viewing vantage point. So the price for that, I don't have that right in front of me. Chris Eberly, you have the change orders.
Here it is.
Yes. That is number 146. And the price
It was
is,
$11,326.
all right. And that includes the finish, coating, painting the lines, installing 4 permanent pickleball nets, and all of the equipment in order to do that, with the credit for the one tennis court net that is not being installed. Any questions about what has been decided by the selectmen, what's been designed here? I think at this point, this committee needs to make a decision as to whether or not this cost falls within the scope of the project.
Wayne, am I muted? No, I'm not. This is a change to the design that presented. I mean, I've answered questions on town meeting floor about tennis courts. This is not the project we said we were going to do. And I'm a little disappointed that the selectmen chose to go this way. We didn't design we took out 4 tennis courts and we're putting back 3. This is clearly a reduction of what the school had prior to the project starting. And this is the first item on our list where we've taken something away from an existing feature that the school had and are putting back less than we designed. And I'm disappointed that's happening. I thought there was a good compromise reached originally that was 4 pickleball courts on 4 tennis courts. And I'm very disappointed that this is the direction they've chosen to go. And I actually believe, honestly, that the town owns 1/4 of the cost of all the tennis courts because we've taken that out of the school. The school budget override did not pay for pickleball, it paid for tennis courts. So I don't think we should pay the $11,000, and I'm disappointed that we're paying the full 100% of all the tennis courts. And I'm not saying that I disagree that pickleball might be a nice thing to have for the town, or should be something we have for the town. I just think this was backdoored in as a way to avoid taking leadership on it at the time that it was designing a 5th court or putting a court someplace else. And I think that's what voters hate to see governments do.
Wayne,
Go ahead, Rich.
so I have 2 points. Number one, when we initially talked about the pickleball, it was striping. We'll do some striping. $11,000 is a lot of striping. So I know there were probably other design changes, but when we talked about it, initially the concept was it wouldn't be that big a deal. And the other thing that I have to bring up is, depending on what happens with the radon, that we're going to be paying something for that. And we also just put in a $76,000 booster pump, which we obviously had to do. But I just don't want to spend money on items that are discretionary at this point in time. I have a bit of hesitation to do that.
Denise, do you have any comment?
I feel like I've shared a lot, maybe not with this group, about kind of where we landed. I do agree with Craig. This, I think, is the first instance where we have not replicated exactly what we took away, which was something that we repeated multiple times through the course of getting approval from the town. So they weren't going to sort of lose anything as part of the project. Clearly, from a school perspective, we're ending up with less than what we started with before. So I too am challenged to have budget from this project sort of not be in line with kind of the expectations that we had set with the community at the outset.
All right, thank you. Diane Germain, any comment?
Yes. I certainly understand that the schools might have some qualms about this because The process was difficult the way it evolved. That having been said, the only thing we're doing new is putting 4 courts in place of 1 tennis court. The rest of it was something we had agreed to do. We would line the other courts. I don't see this as a change in the project. I see this as something that benefits the whole town. And it was what the select board voted to do. So we found a way to do it that was pretty inexpensive. And I think that it's reasonable.
Now, Diane, I disagree. I think you found a way to do it and had the school project pay for it. I think it was inexpensive because you didn't have to pay the cost to build a pickleball court. You took one away from the school, and I don't see any other way you did it. They started with 4, and they now have 3. So they lost 1 tennis court, and then the town is getting a pickleball court. I don't object to the town getting a pickleball court. I object strenuously to the school losing a tennis court. And I have no issue, and I pay the entire cost of co-lining those courts, all 4 of them, without an issue. But I honestly believe I sat at town meeting and lied to the voters because the selectmen changed the plans after they were approved. And that's a horrible feeling to be in when you're the guy that endorsed and worked on this project. And this is the first thing we've taken away from this project since the day we started. And I find it really just insulting that the selectmen chose to do this. And I know it wasn't a unanimous vote, but it's just wrong, in my opinion, on the whole thing to do it this way. And I think it's going to just undermine the credibility of the finance committee and the selectmen with the voters. When the voters vote for something and it's changed by 2 of the 3 selectmen. So I strenuously object the 11,000. And if I had my druthers, I'd charge them for 25% of the entire tennis court project.
Well, I don't think you have that ability
No.
to do that, Craig.
I don't, but I feel that we've just lied to the voters for the first time on the permanent building committee. We've done everything else exactly as we described, and now we're changing it. And I had no problem with 4 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts. I thought that was a great solution. But 2 people in the town voted to change that, when the majority of the town voted to do it a different way. And I will be vocal about that at the finance committee meeting and everywhere else. I just think it's a wrong move. I don't think that's the way government should work. So I'm an adamant no on the 11,000, and I'm adamantly opposed to the way this was handled across the board.
Well, one of those points is within the purview of this committee, and
Right.
and one is not, Craig.
Absolutely, I get that. I just feel this is my one opportunity. This committee is discussing it, and I thought we had solutions reached. And again, it's in my mind, it's overstepped by the selectmen again. And I know they have the right to do it, but just because you have the right to do something doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. So that's my take on the whole pickleball court fiasco.
Wayne?
Understood. So the implication of not doing it would be to construct the 3 tennis courts as originally intended, or paint them with both tennis and pickleball lines, and leave the 4th court blank. We would top coat it. We would not put the. I'm not sure, Charlie or Julie. There is an athletic surface that goes on even over the top asphalt court. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it gets painted with one solid coat first, and then the lines go on. So you would, if you decided to hold off on anything altogether on that quadrant there, you should probably still do the base solid color, and then lines would go on however you'd want.
The installation of the post would be very disruptive.
I didn't hear that.
The tennis court post?
The installation of the tennis or pickleball court posts, whichever it ends up being, would be very disruptive if you proceeded in that manner. It would be more costly overall, regardless of which way you went, because the design detail for the tennis posts is a substantial amount of concrete work to brace the posts, and it's more than just dropping a fence post in. And so the surface that you lay down would be quite disrupted and would eventually look patched should you come back and do anything else. This is the best result that you're going to get for whatever you do here is going to be to do it all at once.
One question that I have is, did we ever get a confirmation? So are they going to be able to, does the MIAA, will they still be able to play tennis in Millis with 3 courts?
Yes, they will. They do it in some surrounding towns. Diane was great, and when she brought the latest proposal, I think Mike Banks had gathered information. So the long answer, but yes.
I think there's one clarifying aspect is that we're not sure we could ever host tournaments.
So why did a school project turn into this when we're diminishing what the school is capable of doing? I just think it's outrageous. I really do. And I'm sorry to be so adamant about it. The 4 courts on 4 tennis courts made sense to me. It seemed like a great compromise. And now we can't host tournaments. My kid runs track. We don't have a track. Now we're taking away one of the tennis courts. I mean, he's graduating, so it doesn't matter. But it just seems vindictive is the word I would use.
Can I just have something to say here? And I obviously am the member of the board that did not support this position, but that's the decision of the board. I do take a little umbrage at some of the terms that are being used here. I think the board members who voted in favor of this did it in response to what they perceived to be the best interest of the town as a whole, which is really the point. It's hard for me to defend the decision because I didn't vote in favor, but clearly I want to state this is the position of the board, that this is the design we'd like to see. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the role of the ESBC to determine whether or not this additional funding should come from the project or has to find funding elsewhere.
Thank you, Jim. And I've been silent on it. I'm not happy with the result or how it did in fact get decided. But nevertheless, that is where we find ourselves from an actual cost standpoint and efficiency of construction. Unless the town through some other means would come up with the $11,000 in order to do this additional work, they're going to be left with a blank court that they're going to have to finish at some point in some fashion with some degree of quality or not. That may very well be less than how the project might do it otherwise. And so from an overall cost to the town, I think this is the best option. And so I would support including it within the project for that reason alone.
Can I ask a procedural question? No matter what we vote, the selectmen can still vote to use project funds on this, correct?
I'm not.
As a change order. I mean, if we don't recommend a change order, they can override our recommendation. Is that correct?
I don't know. No, I don't believe that's the case, Craig.
Okay. Because I don't want to build something that looks horrible. I'm accepting the fact that the selectmen have put 4 pickleball courts on it. And if we do it after the fact, it is going to look rough. I don't want that to be the case. But, I'm not going to cut my nose off to spite my face. I'm not going to leave a vacant lot sitting there. But it's And I know the town doesn't have $11,000 to devote to it either right now. The only way this is going to get done right now is if this project pays for it. And I think it's absolutely wrong that we're going to pay for it, but I'm not going to make something that looks horrible because we didn't think this through all the way and didn't have a plan that, that this was sprung on at the last minute. And again, we're over a barrel having to respond to a decision that wasn't part of the original plan. Not us, but this has happened before with other things. So, it's a tough place to be because I don't want it to look bad, which is what's going to be if we do it after the fact and have to core it and concrete and all that other stuff.
Understood. All right. Any other comments, questions, points of view?
Well, Wayne, I think that, would it be permissible if the SBEC decides to proceed because it's in the best interest of the town of Millis as a whole? I don't know whether it'd be appropriate for the committee to go on record requesting that the town reimburse the project for it.
I would vote for that.
It's a request.
Bridge requested. You haven't noted.
Request.
Yeah.
It's binding, but perhaps from the overall point of view, it gets us to a reasonable solution and not have a project half done.
Yeah. I mean, I would vote for that, realizing the selectmen are under no obligation to fund it. But it would be something I could vote for.
Well, let's, Jim, thanks for that offer as a potential alternative here. I think those are separate issues, though. I think this committee needs to decide whether or not they will fund it. And then separately, I don't think they can vote on that contingent upon asking the selectmen or getting the selectmen to agree to reimburse the project for it. Because I think that's unknown, and whether or not it's likely or not is irrelevant. I think this committee needs to make a decision as to whether or not they're going to include the change order. If they're going to ask for a reimbursement for it, I think that's a separate matter.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right. So, absent any other questions, and I don't mean to cut this off. And if anybody does have something, please say it now. Otherwise, let's have a vote. Then I'm going to make a motion to accept change order number. Chris, what's the number? Change order number 146. Is that the number that we're using? Chris?
I think you're muted, Chris.
Sorry, Wayne, I was muted. Yeah, it's 146.
All right, then I make a motion that the committee approve change order number 146 in the amount of $11,326.
Second.
Craig Schultz, how do you vote?
I'm torn. I'm going to make a motion after this, but I'll vote yes on this so it doesn't look like crap when we're done with it. That's a yes. That's an aye. I vote in favor of this.
Thank you, Denise.
Disgusted by doing it, though.
You don't have to feel.
Wait, it's a yes from Denise.
All right, Diane.
Yes.
Rich Nichols.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Mr. Chairman, that's my
Mr.
formal
Schultz.
introduction. I move that we send a request to the selectmen asking them to reimburse the project for $11,326 from town funds to pay for the pickleball courts.
Can I add on to that motion?
Please.
And that we did this, I did this, the ad was under protest. I'm not happy with this either.
Rich, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're asking for. What are you asking to be under protest?
No, I just say that I don't agree to that. I voted for it. However, I'm sorry. So yes, I agree. Ask for the $11,000 for the selectmen, because just leave it at that. That's fine.
All right. So did you second that motion?
Second.
Denise, how do you vote?
Yes.
Craig, how do you vote?
Aye.
Rich, how do you vote?
Aye.
Diane, how do you vote?
Nay.
Wayne Clocko votes aye. All right. Any other questions or comments regarding pickleball?
Can we not talk about it again?
Ever?
No. Well, we have to talk to the selectmen about it.
All right.
And I may nominate Craig to do that.
If they don't schedule it 2 PM, I can go. The ones they have during the weekday, I cannot make. I know it's convenient for the retirees, but for those of us that still have a few years left in us, it's a tough one.
Understood. All right. Let's move on then. We have other change orders, and I guess we may be including this one in the others. Chris, do you want to lead us through the other change orders that are under consideration?
Yep. If you're looking at the document that I sent out, it's on the last 2 pages, 9 and 10. In addition to 146, 147 is additional asphalt at the basketball court. There's an ongoing problem with silt and sediment washing onto the court that the landscape architect believes is twofold. One is the cause of the problem is the grass not being fully established yet. And secondly, there's a triangular spot at the corner of the courts where, because the walkway is narrow in that area, the grass tends to be trampled. And so the trampled grass is not holding the soil on the slope, and it's leading to soil leaking into the basketball court on a occasional basis. So this is additional asphalt over that triangle area that's frequently trafficked, as well as temporary additional wattles to contain the settlement until the grass takes hold, in the amount of $2,613.45.
There is a slight elevation change here, and the runoff from the slope was originally
photo.
It was originally intended to be controlled with grass, but it's a high traffic area. The grass is never going to grow there. It's always going to be mud. We built a beautiful basketball court there, and to have silt runoff on it is not desirable. So Chris has got those two, the sketch and the photo side by side there show you the area. It's 15 feet, and it's best controlled by putting some asphalt down between the court and the walkway. So that's what's involved there. Any questions?
Yeah, Wayne, it was, sorry, I'm getting for some echo. The cost per square foot was pretty high, but Chris got back to me and said it's basically because you had a lot of protection, and to get the asphalt over there, it drove up the cost. Is that correct?
It's largely the equipment to manipulate or to prepare the area. The equipment rates on a public job are generally quite high, and even though it's only about 3 hours of work, when the day cost is close to $2,700, it adds up pretty quick.
But I thought we were doing this in conjunction with some other asphalt work. Is that not right, Julie?
Yeah, we're gonna try to do that. That's the goal, but Rich is correct, though. This is going to require some protection. You know, we're going to have to either drive over the asphalt there, the existing asphalt, and come up that slope. So probably going to have to put some plywood and protection down. And yeah, the daily rates are pretty high on these pieces of equipment.
Okay.
I'm assuming, I actually think they're gonna hand pave this, because I think getting an asphalt truck in there would be too difficult.
I think most of the cost is the prep of the area. They've got to scoop out the loam that's there, get to a compactable subbase, likely bring in some more material so that the asphalt is not as deep, and that's really where the bulk of the cost is. The actual like dropping asphalt on the hill with a wheelbarrow and hand tamping or however they end up doing isn't really the most significant part of this. It's really that cost to prepare the area and get a suitable subbase.
All right. Any questions about this? Any other questions? All right. What's the other change order that we have, Chris?
The other change order that we're looking at is just it's a small cost. This is we've dealt with this before. In a number of locations, there was a disagreement between the civil and the landscape drawings that led to a conflict in how the clearances worked for inverts and the cap on drainage structures. This is another instance of that. This work was done on T&M basis because we had previously approved it multiple times when this field condition occurred. It was for $1,470.51. Essentially, they have to modify the manhole in the field because if you add up the rim plus the lid on the catch basin plus the inverts, the math doesn't quite work out for the finished grades.
So Chris, to be clear on this is a coordination issue that we're paying for?
Correct.
Okay, so the drawings were in conflict.
Yes, the drawings. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Rich, do you have a concern?
Nope.
All right.
No, I mean, it just, it's, sometimes what happens is that gets absorbed by the design team, but that's not going to happen. So I think we're just going to do it.
All right. Do we have a motion then to incorporate the previously approved change order for pickleball with these other two change orders? Is that the cumulative amount, Chris?
So last time we were together, we discussed, and Julie was not with us at that time. We discussed the idea of billing change orders to contingency versus creating new change orders. There's generous construction contingency remaining, and all three of these fall under the site work, so they would be ineligible for participation by the MSBA anyway. If we elected to include these as contingency items as opposed to change orders, it would be a different motion than issuing this, as I believe we're up to change order 29.
Thank you for that, but in light of the fact that we've already approved the change order for pickleball, and if we're going to ask the selectmen to approve or to pay for a change order as opposed to reimbursing something taking out of contingency, I think that's a clearer request. So I'm going to ask the committee to consider this as a change order. Is that the cumulative amount for the 15,409?
Yes, it is.
All right. Would somebody like to make a motion to
that? We recommend change order. What number is this?
29.
29 for $15,409.96.
Second.
All right. Denise seconded it. Rich, how do you vote?
Aye.
Diane,
I,
Craig,
Aye.
I've lost track. Who have I not asked?
Me, Denise.
I'm sorry, Denise,
It's okay. I.
and I vote aye. Thank you. This motion passes unanimously. We skipped over, no, we did not. The 2-week look ahead. In light of what we already discussed about radon and COVID-19, is there anything else that we need to communicate to the town in relation to this project at this time?
I think just the traffic changes related to the street paving, which we touched on earlier.
All right. Julie, you did a very nice job of laying out that schedule a week or two ago. Thank you very much for doing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Can you
just to touch upon, Wayne, if I could. So this is what Wayne's referring to in terms of the remaining work on site. There is asphalt paving for a sidewalk that's prepped but waiting for the asphalt plants to open. There is some catch basin work related to raising existing catch basins. At least one, possibly two, were covered over because the grade wouldn't work with the binder. So we need to adjust the remaining catch basins to raise them. There's some concrete work that needs to happen at a number of locations. This is at the parking right as you drive in, at the three-way stop, and then as you turn into the new parking lot. And then there's an additional sidewalk that needs to be cast further down. That work is close to happening, pending scheduling. There's also, and this is also along the actual concrete pour, there is the roadway that needs to occur. Essentially, we're taking out the intersection and then moving on. And then we were originally going to take the parking lot at the tennis courts to begin that work on 4/1. But the result of all this is, despite all this planning and planning for asphalt, it looks like most of this work is going to be done while the school's vacant anyway.
So in terms of, well, I guess, let me back up. One item that we didn't cover, and I guess this is a question for Charlie Hay. Have we settled on the areas of the base coat that are unacceptable and are to be torn out?
The landscape architect is supposed to be there tomorrow if there is any review that needs to happen, but I thought, Julie, you had sort of made a judgment on that.
Yeah, we did. They've already taken some out. They did not put the base coat back yet, Wayne. They just dug it out, put more gravel in it, recompacted it, and now it's just there. So tomorrow when they come out, they can certainly look at it and say, yep, that looks good, or can you do, extend it a little bit more here or there.
All right, so you're going to have that resolved tomorrow? As of tomorrow, is that the intention?
As long as Josh goes out there.
All right, great. All right. I drove by a couple of days ago. I didn't see any disturbed asphalt, so I wasn't sure what the status of that was. If that gets done tomorrow, that's fine.
So, Wayne, currently they had removed a large section of it. There is a section that's in the roadway that's exhibiting cracking. That I don't know if do they intend to remove that section, Julie, and they're just waiting until we're closer to the asphalt date?
Yeah, exactly. They are going to take it out. They are just waiting till we get a little closer so that, in the event there is more traffic coming through there, you're not beating up what you already have.
All right. So given that binder repair that needs to be done, in terms of community communication. It seems that what we need to do is put something out in regard to the three-way stop, the interruption of the traffic pattern to town hall, that specific area. So, Julie, can we get something more specific from you on your intention as to how and when you intend to do that?
Yeah. Yep. I'll call Dorenzo tomorrow. I'll try to get a date set for sure. I mean, it's not really going to be the milling that's going to affect it that much. That's going to be a quick process, and we can pretty much stay out of the way there. But it's going to be when we choose to actually pave it is really, want people driving over it. It's probably a 2-day shutdown.
All right. Well, just give us your schedule.
Yeah.
Diane, can you work with Julie to craft something that we can put out on the town website, the DPW, Facebook, wherever?
Yeah, I guess my first question is, how many people are driving in this area now?
Well,
not a lot.
Not a lot. There are still people that still come in to the school that way. There are some people that are still parking in that area.
Yeah.
And there are people that are going into the VMB that way as well.
Okay, I'll see what Julie has, and then we can talk.
Great.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Any construction administration updates? Anything else that we haven't already discussed?
The only thing that I would speak to is that we are seeing, and this somewhat ties into COVID-19, we are seeing disruption of materials starting to creep up. It's very hard to quantify that. We're also seeing some directions from departments of public health about construction sites that are staying open, having specific practices related to spreading COVID-19. So requirements for hand wash stations and other things. We did send a list of those requirements to Agostini, and they're working with us to make sure that we meet them. We have heard anecdotally from other jobs that we're involved in that departments of public health and building inspectors are doing snap inspections of construction sites to ensure that the practices that they're using while staying open during this specific issue plays out, are maintaining best practices to keep the workers safe and to avoid spreading the virus.
Is there anything specific to our project, Julie, that you know of other than the fencing that is on order and on hold and we don't know when it's going to be received?
No, not specific to this project, but like I said, we've definitely, with other states being shut down, we have certain materials shipping from states that just won't be shipping out. But fortunately, the stage we're at in this project, from what I know right now, we're not affected by anything.
Well, Julie, we're all going to be open the day Monday morning after Easter, so get ready. Get ready.
Okay. All right.
Wayne, the only thing that may be coming up, going back to what Julie was saying, is if we do any of the remediation things, that might be problematic if we can't get materials, the pipe and things like that, and fans. Those might be problematic. And then also, Julie, on the booster pump, you said that the plumber was, procuring that material. We've been having problems getting stuff because the supply chain has been shut down. So normal things that you could normally get have not been. So that may be, upcoming where if they can't get the parts, they can't do it.
Right. Or even sometimes when it's ready to ship, they're not shipping. They're not shipping anything out. So I'm going to call the plumber tomorrow and see where it stands, but obviously it changes on a daily basis too. So, but yeah, and with the radon situation, we've talked about this on other projects. We can try to search for something that's local if at all possible, to try to, be able to just get something quickly instead of have it shipped across several states.
One question for you, Julie, on the plumbing stuff. Is there ability to get that material shipped earlier and store it on site? Could you put it on the loading dock and get it there, have them ship it ASAP?
Yeah, I can find out. I think the way the timing worked, it wasn't supposed to come in until right before April vacation, because I know I released them early on it to make sure it was here in time for April vacation. So I don't think there was much fluff in that delivery date anyway, but I can find out.
I mean, if we can get it here and if it's there, we can always put it in. That puts it in our control.
Yeah. Yep, definitely.
All right. Good point, Rich. All right. Anything else from an administration standpoint?
I think that's all that I have for right now.
Okay, then let's deal with some invoices. Have the monthly VIP. Is Kim with us?
So,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking if Chris had it to show on the screen.
All right.
so
yeah,
what we're showing. Go ahead, Kim.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
So what we're showing here is the invoices that we had as of last week. My understanding is that among the stuff that was circulated, there's also an invoice from GZA that came in very late in the process. If it's approved tonight, I think your intention, Kim, was that it would be up for approval. If we approved it tonight, next month's VIP would just acknowledge that it was received and note it in the budget, but it wouldn't necessarily be reflected in this month's VIP as it was distributed to you.
Right.
I saw an email from Jeff D'Amico to GZA, and I wasn't sure that he was correct. Jeff asked whether or not this was the first invoice or whether or not something had been previously billed. Kim, I thought we had approved an initial invoice to GZA. Is that, do you recall?
It sounds familiar. I don't have it handy right now, but I think you're right. I think we did already approve that $3,000 one. Yeah, it was 228 was the invoice number, though. I don't know if we did, because that's kind of fairly recent.
Let's deal with the GZA invoice separately. I don't want to hold them up on their money, but it sounds like we're not sure what actually has been submitted or paid. So let's verify that. Maybe we can vote a not to exceed price pending verification at the end. But let's go through the rest of these. And I'm going to ask, according to the new regulations by the town treasurer, we can approve these by email. So I'm going to ask, Kim and I talked about this. Kim will send out an email to all of the voting members, asking them to approve the final or the invoice amount, and I'm going to ask the members to reply to all with their response, with their approval, assuming that we do, as a committee, approve them.
Can I just ask one question? What's the WB Mason bill for? Is it stuff that just came in late?
It's the 12-inch chairs that the school ordered.
Those were the smaller chairs for the preschool and kindergarten area.
Okay, so we're getting to the end of, sundries for the school, right?
Right. Rich, this was specifically approved several meetings ago, and Terry Wiggin was going to pursue finding a home for the original chairs that were unsuitable.
Right.
Do we have an update on that?
I have not been able, I have put it out there. I guess I would say that my brethren have been occupied with COVID-19 issues, so nobody's really thinking about buying chairs right now.
All right. Well, let's not let this get lost in the.
I'm not gonna let it. I won't let it get lost. But
all right.
just
Thank you.
understand that we're all dealing with other issues.
Understood. Rich?
No, that's good. I just was curious to see what, I kind of figured it was a late item, so.
This was one that they specifically asked for. The chairs that were originally ordered were not suitable. The committee voted to approve this amount, and I guess the bill has just come in now. Is that accurate? All right.
Yep.
All right. So let's start with Compass. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the amount of $16,003.50 for Compass Project Management for the month of February.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Denise, how do you vote?
Yes.
Craig, how do you vote?
Aye.
Diane, how do you vote?
Aye.
Rich, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I, Wayne Clarko, vote aye. All right, motion carries unanimously. Tape.
All right, I make a motion that we approve the amount of $26,917.17 for Tape Architects for the month of February.
Not to short Tape, but I think that's 76 cents.
76, yeah.
Oh, just say it backwards, sorry.
All the finance guys jump right in.
Oh yeah. We round to the nearest thousand, Wayne, so that's not me. That's not a character.
It's just rounding error, right, Craig?
Yeah. Nearest thousand.
Did I hear you second that motion?
I did.
That's what I thought. Denise, how do you vote?
Aye.
Diane, how do you vote?
Aye.
Craig, how do you vote?
Aye.
Rich, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Wayne Clarko votes aye. All right, next.
I make a motion that we approve the amount of $231,145.77 for Agostini for the month of February, application number 27.
Second, and that was not a rounding error. I'm glad you caught it.
It would have been more than rounding.
Yeah.
All right. I need to ask in relation to this amount, how much of this is retainage release?
That's the one thing that I had not already pulled up, Wayne. Give me 1 second. I know I sent it on to Diane.
And Wayne, I think. And if you didn't,
Wayne,
I did.
think.
I recall seeing it, but I'd like, if you have it handy, Chris, for the rest of the committee to see it.
I didn't have it all added up in advance. I'm sorry. So of this total amount, $189,913.99 is retainage release to Samtel, which is retainage in full, Bolin, which is all but $11,554.63 of Bolin's retainage. It's retainage in full to Mermill, who provided the millwork, in the amount of $15,169.88. It's all but $10,000 to Griffin in the amount of $42,809.25. And it is a reduction in retainage to federal to 1%. So we're releasing $99,623.50 with $25,024.53 remaining.
And Chris, you and Charlie have both reviewed and approved these retainage releases?
Yes.
All right. And so federal has additional work, Griffin has additional work, NB Kenny has additional work because of the change order. And obviously Dorenzo and others, but they're not asking for a retainage release at this point. All right. Given the retainage, if you could go back to the original amount, 189,000 of what is the total Agostini submittal for this month?
231,145.
So it's really $42,000 roughly of actual work in addition to the retainage releases. If my math is
yeah, it's $41,231.78 of let's call it new work, and the remainder is retainage. We're getting to the point that the work that's going on site is not as it's one sub at a time largely. We have about 5 subs remaining on the job in total. So it's the rec amounts are not going to be as high as they were. This is largely Dorenzo being on site over the last month and some sporadic change orders that have been billed.
okay. All right. Well, it's thank you for that explanation. It's been moved and seconded. Diane, how do you vote?
Aye.
Craig, how do you vote?
Aye.
Rich, how do you vote?
Aye.
Denise?
Aye.
And Wayne Clarko votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right. What else do we have?
So Kim, just for procedure-wise, I do have the signed requisition. You can see it on screen. So just so that we have a record that we're voting on the signed and certified copy.
Okay, are you going to be able to drop that off to town hall?
At some point, I've got to figure out where I can go to print 155 pages.
Because Lisa won't pay it without the certified.
Yeah, I'll
fit through the little slot. I don't know how big the slot is.
We can always mail it too if you want. We can make the copies in our office and mail it, Chris, if you want us to do that.
Can you not can you not send the scan?
No, it needs to be the original, or it needs to be a printed copy.
This needs to be flexible, and they agreed to do scans and email approvals.
Yeah, but Diane, they're giving me a hard time. They did say that, but they're making me physically go to town hall and hand them hard copies of stuff as of right now.
So this doesn't need to be complicated. Julie can print the copies with this as the cover on all 4 copies. Julie, if you can have them dropped off at the trailer, the next time I'm on site, I will arrange to deliver it to town hall by coordinating it with them in advance. I don't think this needs to be complicated.
All right, that's fine. Yep.
All right, great. And what else do we have?
So we have WB Mason left and the GZA.
All right. Can we get a motion for the WB Mason?
Can we go back to the front of the bib?
Yeah, we don't have the paper, so.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
I make a motion that we approve the amount of $5,821.40 for WB Mason for chairs.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Denise, how do you vote?
Aye.
Rich, how do you vote?
Aye.
Craig, how do you vote?
Aye.
All right, I lost track. Who did I miss?
me,
Diane.
Diane, how do you
Aye.
vote?
aye.
Wayne Clocko votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right.
Okay, so that leaves us with GZA, which and thinking about it a little further, I had to get a W-9 for them to set them up as a new vendor. So we definitely have not paid the $3,000 one that they referenced. We have not received it.
We have not received what, Kim?
The one that says outstanding at the end, the one that Jeff was questioning.
So
This invoice that we have right now is for $13,651.98. And at the bottom of that, there was a thing that said outstanding invoice, and that's what Jeff was asking about, for $3,237.35.
Just go to the bottom of that page, Chris. There it is.
Yeah, down here.
Yep.
So that's in addition to the 13,000?
Yes.
So we had voted and approved the 3,237?
No, we haven't, because the invoice date on that was February 28th. And I believe that was after our last meeting. And I just looked back on my notes. I don't have a GZA invoice that we voted on. So somehow that didn't make its way to us.
All right, but if my recollection is correct, there was also another concern that what GZA had billed us was not in accordance with their proposal. Is that for the first two phases? I thought this amount, if again I'm speaking from memory, Jeff's note had indicated that this exceeded that amount. Is that accurate?
I can't speak to that, Wayne, right now. This came in at the last minute, and I did not think it was going to be part of today's conversation. So I don't have the normal due diligence that we would have available to us. Flipping through the...
Let's not try to do this by braille. Let's get the facts and have a discussion with GZA. We need to talk to them in relation to this next step anyhow. So let's do all of this at one time and make sure that we know what we're voting on.
Yeah, I know we have a committed amount. I know we have a committed amount to them of $32,900, but I don't believe we've, to my recollection, we haven't actually paid any bills to GZA. The previous radon cost was to the previous vendor.
Wayne, do we want to, do you want to approve an amount up to the sum of these two so you have the ability to pay them? Because subs always work a lot better when you pay them.
Rich, I absolutely agree with that, but I think that would require us, GZA to send us an invoice for that amount. Is that correct, Kim?
Well, we do have the invoice for the $13,651. If you wanted to vote for that and then hold it until we're sure that we are comfortable with that, that's fine. But yeah, we couldn't do the other one because we don't have that $3,000 invoice.
Let's do that then. That's a good suggestion. Rich, do you want to make a motion?
Yep. And Chris, can you pull it up to that final number, please? Yeah.
13,651.
Oh, sorry. Well, actually, good. You can read it because it's too small for me to read. So could you say that amount?
It's $13,651.98 for this invoice.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve payment of that amount for GZA for work done.
Rich, if I can interrupt, one of the things that I'm noticing on this, just as I flip through it, is that some of this cost is listed as test results, summary, and pilot test. And without having compared this to the overall proposal to understand where these values sit versus what they had proposed in their values, can I suggest that the motion be to authorize the chairman to authorize paying this amount, and we pending Compass review against their original proposal, just to ensure that the amount that we're paying them is reflective of the work that they've completed and not getting ahead of themselves.
And that's what I was going to say before you cut me off. But we were thinking exactly like Mr. So that's a great idea.
So Kim, do you have that?
Yep, authorize chair to approve pending Compass review for GZA.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Diane, how do you vote?
Aye.
Craig, how do you vote?
Aye.
Denise, how do you vote?
Aye.
Rich, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Wayne Klockow votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Great, thank you. Do we have minutes to approve? Kim, what are the last minutes?
February 25th.
I make a motion that we approve the February 25th meeting minutes as submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Diane, how do you vote?
Aye.
Craig, how do you vote?
Aye.
Denise, how do you vote?
Aye.
Rich, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Wayne Klockow votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right. Any other business for the committee to consider before we set a new meeting date?
Wayne, I did have one question, just because I don't know. On any of the work in the school, is the concern of having workers inside because you might have to clean afterwards? Just because it would make sense. I just don't know.
It is, Rich, and we talked to John Engler about that. The intention was to not have any kind of presence in the building by contractors other than in the boiler room in a very confined area. So that is a concern. We don't want to have to incur costs to clean in light of the coronavirus. So
no, that makes sense. I just when the building's empty, but then when I thought about it a little more, it did make sense not to have to incur the cost. So
yeah, agreed. John, do you want to add anything to that?
Nope, still in agreement.
All right, great. Thank you. All right. Anything else to consider?
Next meeting?
All right, next meeting. When's your pencil rec going to be due, Julie?
Do you think you're going to have it for next week, Julie? Do we still have Julie?
I think Julie went out to get a beer.
I think
she heard her rec got approved and she went on a run.
Is she waiting to come back in? I have not been monitoring the lobby. No. Okay. Is she muted?
I don't see her listed here.
Nope.
I do, but
4197. I see her phone number.
You do?
4197. I think that's her.
no, that's Kim.
No, that's me.
Oh. Oh,
That's Kim. Yeah.
40, I'm sorry, she was a 41, she's a 401 number. She's not, no.
She's
She's
gone.
also 41 something, or 47.
All
I would
right,
imagine we're going to get the rec sometime next week. The approval of the rec would be around the 10th, because it should be relatively simple. So the week of the 21st would be easier, but I know that's school vacation week. But in this current climate, I'm not sure this is a good time or a bad time.
does the school committee have, or the planning board have meetings for the 21st, do you know?
No, we're set on we're the 7th.
School committee does not.
All right, is it all right to shoot for the 21st then?
Works for me.
Me
We'll
too.
do it. We'll do it this way. You can all come in your pajamas if you like. All right, next meeting, April 21st. We'll plan on doing it in this format. We may use the town facility. I guess that's Zoom. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we may be switching to that. But I think we're likely, unless the country reopens for business the Monday after Easter, we will meet in this format on the 21st.
Okay,
All
Sounds
All right.
good.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Aye.
Night.
Stay
Thanks,
safe,
Randy.
everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Good night.